I'm only taking one step at a time towards healing myself. I had to get out, I found a way out. No more living in pain or misery. It's all about protecting my energy. Keep the negative away from me, because I am just keeping my peace. Cut off everything that no longer was serving me, and I chose to start loving myself. I walk in my purpose, no looking back, I'm only going within. Be standing there, a better version of me. I must say that I'm proud of me. It's not about how you feel, I'm living proof that God is real. So let me show you how to heal. Damn it, I'm wearing it well, cause I came a long way. My journey isn't yet complete, that's what it look like to heal. Damn it, I'm wearing it well, I'm proud of myself. It's nothing to it, you can do it, all you gotta do is just fight through it. Creative soul, creative soul, creative soul. Just fight through it. Creative soul, creative soul, creative soul, creative soul, yeah, yeah.
Welcome to Pain to Purpose podcast, where we have open discussions to heal together as a community. Today we are on episode 25, and we're on our single parent series, and our special guest is Shameria Ann. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to have the opportunity to talk with you and just chit chat.
I thank you. I appreciate you for coming on. I know you're very busy, so I do not take this for granted. So thank you again. So can you give us a little bit about yourself?
So I am a retired military woman, and I served almost 21 years in the military, and I retired in 2021. And I have two little boys that I was married to their father for about 11 years. And I say little boys, but at this point, they're almost taller than me. I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. And so I'm a small business owner. And so I do a little bit of everything, but mostly coaching for individuals and businesses and book publishing. So I recently wrote 2 books that released in July, and I had another before that, which made the bestseller list. And so that's me in a nutshell.
But congratulations to you on bestseller.
Thank you.
I know that's amazing.
It is. It is. It was a surprise because it happened within 24 to 48 hours of the book releasing. So we were just really trying to get our grips with, the whole marketing process of the book in the first place. And then we got hit with that. We were super excited. So it was the bestseller in 2 categories in that 24-hour period. And it's still in top 10 for those 2 categories. It's really exciting.
That is a blessing. So tell us, how did you get here? What's the pain that got you to your purpose?
It's a lot of it. I'll start with growing up. I grew up in a household with all brothers. And I came in, I was an oops baby. And my mother and father had no idea. She was like 5 months pregnant when she found out. And so if you have a household full of boys, and then all of a sudden you have a daughter, everything shifts. But within the first 2 years of my life, my parents divorced. So I grew up with my father in prison pretty much my entire life. He got out when I was 17, but he still wasn't really involved in my life. And I had a family full of people who didn't really have a lot of desire other than to just kind of work their way up. And I had higher aspirations. So I really had to figure it out on my own. And I've done that pretty much my whole life. So, they say you're the best person when you have to do it the hard way. I had to do everything the hard way. So
Wow.
it's taught me a lot. And I've had lots of trials and tribulations through the process, which we can dig into, but it's a lot. It's a lot of pain. But I think, my push factor the entire time is how I got here. It's one thing to go through pain, but it's another thing to sit in it, which I don't ever do. You just kind of pick up your boots and figure it out and keep pushing, and something else will knock you down. And it's a repetitive process.
That's amazing to be at a space where you can literally see, like, when something happens, this is just temporary. Because I can honestly say that I've been through some stuff and I actually sat in it and had to figure it out the hard way. So yep. I commend you for that.
I fully understand that. The book that I recently released, The Divinity in Our Lives book, is a book of poetry. It's nonfiction. So they're all poems about my life and struggles in my life and other people very close to me, like my mother and friends. And I've experienced some sexual trauma as a child. And then again, as an adult, I've been stalked. I grew up in a house of domestic violence. My mother grew up in a home of domestic violence. So it's just like one thing after another in a lot of instances. In those moments, you don't sit in it. I've sat in it probably for some short periods of time when I was much, much younger. But if you grew up in a household where there's domestic violence, you learn not to sit in it if you watch your parents sit in it, right? At least that's what we hope. We hope to learn not to sit in it. Some people will repeat patterns because every kid in a household is not going to respond the same way. And so thankfully for me being the only girl in the home, my mother was very adamant about me not accepting things that she did and was able to catch things. So when I was about 14, I dated a young man my freshman year of high school that had domestic violence behavior, according to my mother. I didn't see it. And in that first book, that's a bestseller, I write about that. I didn't see the behavior. I was 14. Who picks up on that at 14?
Right.
Yes. I mean, like, you don't know. You're like, okay, he's just a little cuckoo, but you don't realize that, like, cuckoo is a little deeper than that and that it could be dangerous, but you don't realize that when it's happening. And he would do things like, if another young man was talking to me or gave me a hug, he would like come out of nowhere, like running and like tackle and knock the guy on the ground. Like, I remember him. You remember when we were younger, we wore those headphones and the little stereos that we would carry around because that's listening to music. I remember him breaking one of my friends' headphones. He hit him so hard it fell, and he fell. And at 14, you're like, that's aggressive, but you don't understand really that that's not just aggressive. That's overboard, right? But he just, continued, and it escalated from there to, calling me names and telling me that I dressed like words a 14-year-old shouldn't be told. And it was a lot. But I hadn't had a conversation with my mother about it because these things will happen at school. It wasn't until we were on the ride home after we had an argument at school, and he had came over to the house and my mother was taking him home, and he was questioning me. He was sitting in the front seat with my mom and he was questioning me in a very aggressive way. And my mom like stopped the car really hard. And she was like, excuse me, like, you don't run my daughter's life. And so like, she had to come outside of herself, but it also was fear because she's been there. Mm-hmm. Because her first child's father, she had a baby when she was 17, which she actually lost one at 16. And she tells us she fell off of a bike, but sometimes I don't believe that she fell off of a bike. And she ended up pregnant a second time with my oldest brother. And that father is the abusive one throughout her, young years. And so she saw something in him that she's seen in my brother's father, for sure. She was like, you're done with this little boy. This is not going to work. Well, you would think it in there, but it didn't. That person would continue to stalk me all of high school and into college and even move cities to do it. And then even after that situation was addressed, I got married and had a kid, and he still was, to the point where my husband had to then address the situation. So, you make one mistake and it follows you for a long time. And so to this day, sometimes I wonder, like, is he gonna pop up?
Did you ever get or did you get a restraining order? And
nope. Was never anything that I even thought I needed. Once everything continued to happen and I kept getting older, I won't relocate back to where I was raised. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I feel like I'm safer that way by not relocating back. I go visit, but I won't move back.
Okay. So you got married, and then at what point did you become a single mother again?
Right. So I met my ex-husband in college, and we got married the year I graduated. So we were like 22. And we stayed married for almost 10 years. So we got divorced when I was about 31. So I've been a single mother for going on 9 years. And so we got divorced when I was 31. So for 9 years, I was still military and still moving around, still trying to take care of the kids, still trying to figure out my career. I went through the master's program when I was pregnant with the youngest one, and I had to quit and then start back. Pregnancy brain is no joke. So I had to finish my program, but I finished my program 5 days before he was born.
Wow.
I had him. So it was rough, but you got to do what you got to do, because I know what I wanted to do. And so I'm like, it's got to happen. So, yeah.
So how has it been since you've graduated and everything, the
career and whatnot?
How has it been raising the children on your own? And
having 2 boys, I grew up in a house with boys. I've been like, I got this, right? But my kids are so different than my brothers were. My kids are really, really smart kids. Everybody thinks their kids are smart, but no, mine are really, really smart kids, and their mouths are smart too, because they're so smart. And so they think they know everything. Okay. So sometimes it's difficult with them, because me and their father are polar opposites. Their father's really, really laid back. And
I can understand. I'm with you on that.
So it could, I take the brunt of things most of the time. I have to take the lead in most of the things with them. Then all I have to do is ask him. But then that's an effort all the time. Sometimes you don't want to have to ask. Sometimes I just want you to put as much effort as I'm putting without asking. And so he's gotten better lately. But it was a struggle. When we divorced, the youngest one was in Pampers, almost 2. And the oldest one was 6. And so you have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old who's in school. But I also had a job where I traveled. So sometimes I would be gone overnight, and I would travel all over the state of Texas. And if you know anything about Texas, it's not small. So I could leave here and be at the top of Texas in 12 hours. That means I'm not coming home tonight. And then I got to work that next day. And then maybe I'm spending the night, because it's going to take me a whole 10 to 12 hours to get back home. So it was so hard for me to get him to do things. And for a while there, he'd be like, well, I didn't ask for a divorce. So,
So he felt like because he didn't ask for it, everything should just be on you and you should figure it out.
Initially, yeah. Initially, it was like, well, I didn't ask to be in 2 different households. So, which only made me mad. And I don't like to argue. So I was like, okay. So I would really be, frustrated a lot. And my mother was retired at the time. She's still retired. She's 71 now. But she ended up relocating for me temporarily for a couple of years, so that baby could get in school. And so she ended up getting a 2-bedroom apartment, and I would then help her finance that, so that I was able to have overnight care. And then
that is a blessing. I can honestly say, when I went through my divorce, my mother was there. Mom, I love you.
Mothers, baby.
She's passed. But she was right there. I mean, she took my baby to school. Mm-hmm. She picked him up from school. Like, he didn't start riding the school bus until she got sick, and then she passed. But even then, she was like, I'll take him to school. Like, she was the best grandma, hands down. I don't even know how she did it at times, but her grandchildren were her kids. They
Listen,
were
better
they,
treatment than us. You understand? Better treatment than us. Okay. Because I'm like, if I did that, I'd already be getting a whooping. I wouldn't even be able to finish the sentence.
yes, yes. So
Yes.
I understand when you say your mom stepped in. I'm so grateful that my mom stepped in and helped because I didn't know how I was gonna do it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a single mom. Like, but I did not know that today, like I would be here. I did not see that.
Yeah.
And so this topic was important for me to do because I want single mothers and fathers out there to see others that they're still making it.
Right.
And it may be hard at times, but we getting through it. And
And we
sometimes helping somebody, like listening to somebody else's story, helps you get through. It gives you that courage, that strength to know, like, you got this, you can do this. It's gonna be okay.
Yep. And there's always tomorrow, and pick it up and try it again. There were a lot of moments. It was hard to be away from my kids working. If my mother had not stepped in, I would not have I wouldn't have been able to keep the job I had. And I had a mortgage because we bought a home. So I kept the home. So I had to be of a salary that was equivalent to 2 salaries. So I had to take a position that was paying well. And it was good because I had finished my master's, so I could. And I was paid great money and even received the company car. So like God was in the business. But without my mother, I would have had to let it go because it would be impossible to travel without someone to continue to help me with the children. So she came in clutch, but she always does. And she considers my kids her kids. So shout out to the mamas, because you cannot do it without them. I'll tell you that much. And just, I did certification programs after certification programs because once you have the degree, then you have more work to do so that you can continue to expand in your field. And my field happens to be public health, wellness, chronic diseases, and disease prevention, which is a lot, So there's a lot of statistician type of work that you have to do and a lot of research. And so you go into certifications to help you understand the human body and how those diseases metabolize and what causes them. And then I spent a lot of time as a public speaker at conferences and things like that. So I was away a lot. Then my grandmother got sick and my mother decided to move back home. And then I was back, single mother, trying to figure it out, right? And he stepped in a little bit to help. But there was so much friction for a while because I would need to be gone a lot, And so I had to hire a full-time nanny.
Oh, wow.
And I would leave, I would get up at 5 a.m. and I'm out of the door by 5:30, 6 o'clock to be in Austin, which is an hour drive and some change in the morning. Austin traffic is horrible. So it could take between an hour and a half. So I'm gone in the morning before they wake up for school, and she would make sure they got off to their locations. And then she would be there in the afternoon when they got out of school until I got home. And if I left work at 5, I might get home by 7:38. And then I'm walking in the door trying to make sure they ate. If I didn't have time, she would cook for them. So it was almost like my nanny was their mom, and I had to do that for a whole year. And, I kept talking to God about it. I'm like, I miss my kids. My kids miss me. Like, I'm paying this nanny a ridiculous amount of money. And I'm tired. I'm making great money, but I'd rather be at home. And so since I retired, I do have a consistent income that's outside of work. So I said, well, let me just buckle down and change it. And I've been doing that. I did that at the beginning of the year and just launched my business and started doing it full time and walking into my purpose, which is what I've been doing this the whole time. But it took all of those things to happen to be like, this ain't it.
Right.
Corporate world is not it for me. So
tell us about your business.
So I am a consultant. I have a beautiful alphabet soup, but I'm a certified personal trainer, certified health coach, emotional intelligence practitioner, and a public manager on top of all of the degrees. And so I'm able to coach people for health reversals. So like if someone has diabetes and they're trying to figure out how to reverse it, I could counsel them on that or coach them in that. And I coach people for life. And so if people are struggling. trying to figure out what is my purpose. You know, what should I be doing? Or I just feel lost. How do I clear my brain? Or I'm not really good at planning, you know, just working with them to figure out what is it that's holding you back from being able to do that. So life coaching. And then a lot of people, they go from that and they're like, okay, I'm ready to launch my business, but they have no idea where to start. And so I coach people in that realm, help them get their businesses set up, their website set up, figure out how to use AI to your advantage so that you're not doing a whole bunch of work on your own. And then book publishing, of course, because a lot of people have a story to tell and everybody needs to hear our stories.
That's right. Amen. And I just want to tell you, thank you again for coming on and be your authentic self, being open, because it is not easy getting out here, opening up and telling your story. We take chances of being judged and, you know, people seeing, well, they look at it as you're telling family secrets and you know, in our culture, it's what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Yes, ma'am.
And then people say things like you have to forgive and move on, but people don't understand that in that forgiving and that healing, you have to talk about it and get it out. It does not work like that where you forgive that person and you just hold on this in. Like you got to talk about it and get it out.
You have to.
In order to even get to your purpose. And I just think that people don't see it that way.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as people think, especially when you've been through a lot of trauma.
That's real talk. You really do have to face your past. You have to face it, face on. Because a lot of times we're like, oh, I'm good. You know, it's not bothering me. Or in your way of trying to move around it instead of through it, we try to tuck it. Well, I'm gonna just step over this for now. But then if you put too many down there, you can't step over it. It's like a mountain. It's a metaphorical mountain. You literally can't step over it at this point. Now you're trying to climb over it because you keep stuffing it down and it keeps getting bigger and you keep stuffing it down. You just can't do that. You really do have to face whatever it is. And I think in our culture, you know, you mentioned with family, they say, you know, what goes on in this house stays in this house. We as in our culture, we don't like to go to therapy. Yep. We don't want folks in our business. So we often will try to talk to each other about how can I help you get through something if I haven't even got through my own.
Yep. So I tell people if you need counseling, go. It's okay. Yes. It does not mean that you're crazy. People have this stigma, you know, and sometimes it's the fear of the unknown. But if you've never been there, you can't speak on it.
You cannot. And, you know, going to therapy, speaking as a single mother, like I stay in therapy because I just told you in a nutshell and I breezed right through it. But I have a lot of trauma that's back there that I had to deal with and still dealing with because it hits you in waves. You know, you could go through life in a situation not trigger you. And then all of a sudden something happens and a memory comes from 15 years ago to slap you upside the head. And now you're triggered and you're like, where did this come from? And then you have to handle it. And so issues have a way of popping up, especially with your own children. A lot of times as a single mother, I think that I'm over the things that have happened to me in my childhood and I don't have children. So it's all good until you see something in your child that you saw in yourself. And then we are like our mothers in some instances. And if they didn't have a great way of responding, we don't have a great way of responding. We've triggered ourselves with our own behavior because we were acting like them, but it's unconscious. So once it's unconscious and you're doing it, and then maybe our kids tell us, and it's almost like hearing, you know, like the situation reincarnated itself. You hear yourself sounding just like your mother sounded in the situation. Then we're triggered and like, oh, shoot, I don't want to be like that. Let me shift a little bit. And it's okay. The hardest conversation I've ever had with my mother, I told you that's my rock, but she don't like therapy. And the hardest conversation I've had with her is trying to, you know, explain that we grew up, it was hard. We didn't have a lot. We had love above everything else. So I feel like if you have that, it could get you through anything. So that's the one solid we had in our house. It was unconditional. To this day, my mother's a very unconditional lover. So because she poured so much love into us, she was offended that you know, we had issues or problems with how we were raised. So she and I have had years to try to work through that. And she would say, well, I did my best. I'm like, I understand that you did your best, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it, because for me to heal from it, I need to have a conversation.
So I think, and this is my own personal opinion, I think the older generation is something about, I think it's more of the older generation that's against the therapy. And I could be totally wrong. But
Nope.
I just think they're stuck in their ways and they didn't heal from their trauma. And so they don't understand that when you don't heal from your trauma, and then the way you react can trickle down to your children. And we got to break those generational cycles. I don't like to say curses, but it's pretty
yeah.
break generational cycles.
Spot on. You're spot on. Of course you are. That's how it goes. I'm not, you know, I've wondered, I've researched, one of my degrees in psychology, I've kind of researched why our elders don't like to address things. But I think in having conversation with them and everything that I've learned, I hate to generalize, but what I found is that our parents were taught to be strong. They were dealing with a lot. My mother, for example, was born in 53, civil rights, 56. You know, that was a tough time to be born. You know, my grandmother in 35, my father was born in 45. They're all pre-civil rights births, right? And they were raised to be strong. Don't cry, don't this, don't that. A lot of don'ts. You know, put the strong exterior, cry when you get home kind of thing. So to try to get them to go from that to being openly expressive, which they view as not strong, they don't want to do it because it's viewed as not being strong. Well, if you're crying, you're not strong. My mama would tell us, what you crying for? So I grew up not crying. As a girl,
holding your emotions in.
Yes, and then when I joined the military, it made it worse. So I never cried. My kids have never seen me cry until this last year. My oldest is 13, and his first time seeing me cry hasn't even been 6 months. Wow. So he told me, we had a moment, and we went to a Christian camp together. I went with him to a teenage camp and took him, and I chaperoned. I thought I was chaperoning. I was learning too. And he was crying, and he broke down, and, you know, he went and got prayer and stuff, but he received the Holy Spirit. And he has been another kid since that happened. But while we were there, he came to me and he said, you know, it's okay for me to cry, Mommy. I never knew it was okay for me to cry. And I said, that's my fault. That's my fault.
I remember this was during the time that my mother was sick. And I was asking my son, how did he feel? And I could tell he was trying to hold things, like he didn't really want to talk about it so much, too much. And, you know, they were like this, that my mom was like the best friend, you know, that was Granny. Yeah. Everything's about Granny. And so I had talked to his dad, and I had told him what my concerns were. And so he said he had asked him, you know, how did he feel? And he said sometimes he feel like he wants to cry, but he tried not to. And I didn't. And so his dad said he told him, if you need to cry, it's okay to cry. And I didn't want him to feel that way. I want him to know it's okay to let those tears out. That doesn't mean you're less of a person because those tears are coming down. And I think a lot of our men, they think that way, that they're not being men if they show emotion, you know, in a marriage. And that causes a problem too, because we want to know that you're in tune with us.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? Because I was married to his father until he was 6, but his father doesn't cry either. So he just, you know, he saw 2 parents who didn't cry. So, you know, that's, I mean, he normalized that. And so, and their father, we're both psychology majors. Really? Their father's an educator. Yes. And their father's an educator, and he's got his master's in guidance counseling. And so that's our world. But still, we can handle and talk to everybody else about their emotions, but we didn't really deal with ours like that, not in front of our kids.
Well, that's just this shows people that even though you have that degree, that doesn't mean you're not going to go through anything. That doesn't mean you don't talk to anybody. Therapists, counselors, like they still need somebody to talk to too, just like a friend needs somebody to talk to. So, yeah.
And we're both big on therapy and counseling. We put him in it. My oldest has been in therapy since he was about 4. And then he stopped maybe a year ago, but he was in there for a long time because he had to deal with the transition of divorce, being the only child for such a long time. He had a lot going on, bless his little heart. So, he's been through a lot, but we're big advocates on therapy. But even if you go, your healing is only as good as your transparency.
That's true. When I was writing my first book, I learned that I had suppressed some things. And as I was writing, some things that I hadn't thought about in years was coming to me. And I'm like, wait a minute, did that really happen? Like, it had me really thinking, that was years ago. Like, so I had to deal with that. And that's really hard. You're already dealing with the now. Now you got to go back and deal with the past and prepare for the future. So, it can be a lot, but I thank God that God has been with me to get through this. Every trial, he's been there. Even when I felt like he wasn't there, he was there. It didn't change as quick as I thought it was going to change. It didn't change the way I thought it was going to. But there was light at the end of the tunnel. And so I am very grateful. And I thank God for what he has done in my life. Because again, I did not think that I would never thought I would be here today.
Right.
Podcast was not on my mind. Writing a book was not on my mind. I went out to LA and spoke on Walking in Your Purpose, and speaking was never a part of this. I literally thought when I started this journey, I was just going to write a book. But years ago, I didn't know that I was going to come with a book. But then when I actually started writing the book, I was just supposed to write this book, and then I thought that was it. And then as I started writing the book, other things was coming to me, and it went from that to, going on other podcast shows, to me deciding I wanted my own show, and I wanted that space for other people to come on and express themselves and help others get through things, because I know there's times where I was going through things, and I think it would have helped. It doesn't change it, but I think it would have helped, like, just to hear somebody say, I've been through that, girl, you gonna get through it. Like, it's gonna be okay. Sometimes we just need to hear that. And I wanted that space for people to come on and just, tell about the pain and how they got to their purpose, so that other people out here in the world can know that God is able. God, he's not going to leave you nor forsake you, and he is always with you. And it went from that to, okay, I'm going to do this affirmation coloring book. And I did that. And then I just started to want to do all these other things. And I'm like, wait a minute, like this wasn't the part of the journey, but it is now. I am enjoying it. And again, I thank God for getting me through. And even the people that come on my platform, I learn from them too. This is not just for my audience. This is for me. It's helping me. We help each other.
Well, number one, I need to go get the coloring book, because I love adult coloring books. They're my favorite things. But the fact that it's an affirmation coloring book, it's not just pages, right? It's more going to be able to pour into you. But that sounds like part of your purpose. Not that I designed your show or anything, right? But God will make your purpose multifaceted. So it'll start in one place and end somewhere else. You don't see it coming. But that tells me that you're walking in light, that you're listening to him, that you're clued into him, that you have a relationship with him, because you can't manifest those things without him involved in telling you, you can do this and putting it in you, because he puts in you what needs to be shared with the world, right? You don't do that on your own. Right. And so be able to have gone from, you know, I appreciate all the praise that you give to him and understanding. It ain't my strength, it's his, because I didn't see this come in. It was all him.
You know, I couldn't do any of this without God. Like, right. You know, the Lord wakes me up every morning and starts me on my way. I don't do any of this on my own. I don't take any credit for any of this. This is all God.
Yep. I 100% understand. When I started writing Divinity in Our Lives, I've been writing poetry since I was 13. I would write poetry as a way to escape the things that were bothering me. So it was never like poetry for fun. I was a serious kid, but I had a lot of serious things happening around me. So I was just a more mature than kids my age and a little focused. Obviously, I joined the military at 17, right out of high school, and stayed 20 years. Like I was a very serious person, still am, but I learned how to have some fun. But I was like about the goals at first. But when I was younger, I started writing poetry. So this book actually has some of the poetry from when I was a teenager. But you couldn't have told me at 13 that I'd be a best-selling author. You would have never been able to tell me that, or that I would stand before crowds of 500 people and teach. You wouldn't be able to get me to believe that little old me would be doing that, coming from a family with nobody who went to college, to having 3 college degrees and working on a doctorate. Like, you couldn't tell me that was what it would look like. Had no idea.
So amazing. Like, you're doing so many great things and helping so many people. That is definitely amazing.
Yeah, I can't take no credit. It's all him. You know, it's an interesting thing, and you probably could relate to this. When God has something for you, it comes. You don't have to try to go get it. And a lot of people, you know, if I had any advice for somebody that's like, I don't know what I should be doing, the things he wants you doing come easier than the things that he doesn't want you doing. You got to go through a few strings for the things that he doesn't necessarily want you doing. And so if you're a person who tries to do your own thing, he'll make the things you're supposed to do easier because he knows you're a busybody. So the things you're trying to do that he doesn't want you doing are harder because he knows you don't want to sit down. But if you're a person that doesn't do a whole lot, doing anything might be hard. But if you're a busybody, the things he wants you to do are easier than the things that he doesn't. I learned that the hard way.
Okay.
I would be like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And he was the whole time like, nope, over there.
So tell us,
it would work.
Tell us what's next for you.
You know, this book turned into a poetry book and a workbook. So it's a double book.
Okay.
The book started and the Holy Spirit kept talking to me like, okay, so you're going to give them all this amazing poetry. It's going to trigger some folks because it's nonfiction. Then what? So it turned into a book for Bible studies. And so I'm currently in the process of marketing that for churches to be able to do for small groups, right? And so this book is not just the book and then we're done. It's actually the first edition of 3 editions. So there'll be an edition a year. And so that's in the pipeline. And I'm currently helping a few other people publish their books. So you'll see a lot more of me just kind of behind the scenes, helping other people do the same thing.
Okay. So how can our audience reach you?
Easiest way is my website, and it'll take you everywhere else you want to go, which is www.shameriaann.com. So if you see how my name is spelled, that's my website.
And they can catch your books on Amazon?
Mm-hmm. They can catch it on any platform at this point. And it's in audio, and it's also in print.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say before we end?
I would love to tell you that your story is inspirational for me. I'm so sorry you lost your mother as a young woman, but I will tell you that, being on your show makes me proud of you because you're pushing forward despite the odds. And that's what it's all about. So I just want to tell you good job and keep pushing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a year and a half. It has not been easy, but again, I do thank God for helping me get through it. So thank you. For our audience, I want you guys to don't forget that we have Pain to Purpose t-shirts. We also have Pain to Purpose tumblers, and you can just email me at creativesoul.business@gmail.com. Again, that's creativesoul.business@gmail.com. And do not forget that we have the affirmation coloring book as well as Tears of a Shattered Heart book, which is my first book on Amazon. And remember, it's only pain until you discover your purpose and start your healing journey. I'll see you next time.